Okay, thank you very much indeed, Fred, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming out here this evening. We didn't know when we planned these meetings what the schedule of football matches was, or European Union debates, or anything else, but it seems to have worked well, so we've got a good turnout. So thank you very much for coming this evening. As usual, what I'm going to do is have a little run through of what's happened over the last year or so in the borough, and then a bit about what we're up to at the moment, and then I'll be really pleased to take any of your questions at all straight after that. So, look back over the last year, normally start off with some of the environmental bits and pieces we've been doing, and so you can see the screen, we've again managed to retain our Green Flag Awards in Fareham. That's a sign of a local authority which takes looking after its parks and open spaces very seriously, and the Green Flag Awards have been awarded again for the I think it's about the 8th year to Hollyhill Woodland Park in Salisbury, and the 7th year to the Osborne Road Garden Reflection here in Fareham. Also, for the 12th consecutive year, Fareham has won gold again in the South and South East in Bloom Awards, and we do work hard to try and fill the borough with flowers every year, and we have the most tremendous voluntary support as well for Fareham in Bloom. Many businesses, many individuals enter their gardens and really do a fantastic job in Fareham, and that is noted each year. And in fact, I think the South and South East in Bloom Awards are going to be held here in Fareham because we pick up so much silverware and gold stuff that it's not really worth sort of going to get it. They'll bring it all to us that way, so we're looking forward to that. And also for the 6th year, the RSPCA's award for our stray dog service, something that is important to people. They want to know that if they do pick up a stray dog, it's not just going to be taken and destroyed, it's going to an organisation that's going to try and rehome it. So we do have a good service there as well. Still looking at last year, play areas. A lot of play areas across Fareham, and we're working hard. We've got a rolling programme, a 10-year programme, which is seeing some pretty major refurbishments. We've got many dozens of children's playgrounds right across Fareham, and we're working hard to improve those significantly, in the batch which are being done at the moment are shown there. We did one very, very expensive one in Fareham Town Centre last year, I think it was last year, which produced the outdoor gym, children's skate park, and a lot of other work up at Park Lane. Housing is important too, affordable housing very particularly. We do have an ageing population in Fareham. In fact, we had in this room just last week a party for our 90-year-olds, all the people who share the same year as the Queen. And I was amazed to see the numbers, and those were only the ones that had heard about it. We have a higher proportion of over 85-year-olds than most any town in England. So we do need to look after our older residents, and with that in mind, we replaced the old Collingwood House in North Fareham with Collingwood Court, which if you haven't seen it and you're thinking maybe in 20 years' time or so you might be looking for somewhere like that, then well worth having a look at. Very, very impressive indeed, and we're producing a number of sheltered housing schemes right across Fareham to really update and upgrade what it is we have to offer to our older residents. Also, in this little picture here is 6 houses which we built in Salisbury Green over the last year. They're called passive houses. They probably pronounce them slightly differently in Germany, but 6 houses which their energy bills, I'm advised, are probably going to be in the region of about £30 a year. And you compare that perhaps with what you spend on gas. Very, very energy efficient indeed, built to a very, very high standard of construction. They're a trial, really, and we're thinking that when we start to build the Wellbourne development north of Fareham in a few years' time, that we'll be looking perhaps to have about 10 or 15% passive house type construction up there as well. Daedalus is an interesting site. The 369 acres down at Daedalus at Stubbington came into Fareham Borough Council's ownership a year ago, and we put in place a 10-year vision for that site. The ambition which we have, which is supported very strongly by the residents in that part of the world, is to see a thriving aviation, aerospace marine business community there, creating in time thousands of new jobs. And as part of our investment into that, and we're looking to invest probably over the next 15 or 20 years, around £50 million into that site to help generate the jobs that we really need on the Gosport Peninsula. And we spent £5.3 million building an innovation centre, which we opened just last March. And we reckoned it would probably take us about 3 years to fill, about 100 jobs, a couple of dozen businesses going in there. And in fact, it's full. It filled within months. And this is for businesses starting out in their own accommodation, moving out of people's garages and backyards and that sort of thing, into purpose-built, serviced and supported with a lot of organisations that do a good job in supporting business, and that's created over 100 jobs on the site in about 9 months. And in fact, we're just looking now at a second innovation centre at Daedalus. We also invested £1.5 million in the runway at Daedalus as well. If we hadn't done that, it would have closed a year ago, and there would have been no more aircraft operations at Daedalus. We've now managed to gain an aerodrome licence for the site through the Civil Aviation Authority. We have border control, and we can bring flights in from anywhere within the European economic area and the Channel Islands as things stand at the moment. So we're not looking at it as somewhere where you'll be perhaps going on your package holidays in years to come, but certainly to attract business jets, business aviation, who will then be able to bring their aircrafts in and have them serviced and maintained on site. Very controversial spot is our strategic countryside gap between Fareham and Stubbington, south of Fareham, and there's a site there. It's a farm, Newlands Farm, which we've had a number of planning applications recently to try and build in our strategic countryside gap. There was one for 1,550 houses a year or so back. That one the applicants actually withdrew, but then another one came in for 1,100 homes in there, and quite an attractive little list of rest homes and pubs and schools and shops and all sorts of things, but most importantly, none of those actually form part of the planning application. All they're attempting to do is to get a consent to put 1,100 homes onto that particular site and essentially erode that gap almost entirely. That is going to be coming forward to the Planning Committee a little later this year for determination. We've had many, many hundreds of letters of objection from residents around the southern part of Fareham and around the Stubbington area about that. Obviously I can't comment on what the Planning Committee will do, but all I can say is it is absolutely contrary to our local plan, which seeks to preserve, in the main, two very large strategic gaps, one being the South Fareham gap, which this one is slap bang in the middle of, and the other one is the Meon gap between Fareham and Titchfield out to the west. There was another very controversial application came in at a similar time in Cranley Road in Porchester, another greenfield countryside planning application for 120 homes, but they come in about every decade with that, and we refuse it, and they go to appeal, and they lose, and it's just been refused again, so we're hopefully going to be in the same cycle. Quite a lot of road improvements have been going on in Fareham over the last 2 or 3 years, and they'll be continuing for a number of years to come. St Margaret's roundabout at Titchfield just been completed. I must say, as somebody who uses it most days, traffic is flowing really much better around that roundabout, particularly joining from Cartwright Drive and basically getting across it from any direction. Also, the Peel Common roundabout has been completed as well, and Newgate Lane North is complete. There is planning consent and funding for a new southern section of Newgate Lane, which will take the traffic entirely away from the existing southern section. And we also now have planning permission for a bypass to Stubbington, which we're seeking funding for at the moment. An expensive project is about £35 million. We think we can fund about a quarter of it locally, and we're bidding to government for the remainder. So a lot of road improvements going on. In fact, the aim being to dual the A27 essentially from around Peak Lane, right the way through to Sedgensworth. So it's all a package of measures to try and remove a series of bottlenecks which run all the way through between Gosport and Fareham, probably with the exception of the A32, because I think that's probably sat in this rather too difficult box for many years now, but certainly in terms of coming out of Gosport to the west, and also that area between junction 11 of the M27 right through to junction 9. There's also proposal for a new motorway junction as well at junction 10 in association with the Wellbourne development. It won't have escaped your notice that there are some very significant sums of money needing to be saved in the public sector, and Fareham Borough Council is no exception to that, even though we set the lowest council tax in England, bar I think only about 2 districts. We still work very, very hard to save money, and one of the ways in which we've been doing that is working with a consultancy called Vanguard, using a method which is completely changing the way in which we deliver services, and also almost an unintended consequence, but a very welcome one besides, not just improving the services we provide, but also saving a great deal of money. This slide says about £500,000 of savings per year, every year, saved through these new systems, which really it's all about empowering our staff to actually make decisions. You contact someone and they can fix it. You don't have to pass it up the line to a bunch of jobs worth that then pass the instructions back down the line. So it speeds up what we do. Benefit claims get dealt with very quickly. We have far, far less appeals on parking tickets and things like that because they're being issued sensibly rather than just plastering them around the place. And in fact, that 500,000 is probably going to tip over to much nearer £1 million a year of savings. And if I say that every £60,000 would be equivalent to about 1% on the council tax, that probably puts it in some perspective for you, the sort of volume of money that we're actually working to save with our services. Also, still on the previous year, we had a number of awards. We run environmental health services with Gosport Borough Council, and that service got an award for how that partnership runs. In fact, we also run building control services. We run them with Gosport and Portsmouth and Hampshire councils. And there was an award for the Vanguard work, which I've just described, which has been well commented on in the press. And we've also been running a service for businesses as well, giving them some mentoring and guidance, new businesses which have been setting up in Fareham, which of course are really important. Now moving on to what's happening at the moment, we're building a new leisure centre over in the west of the borough, Holly Hill Leisure Centre. It's taken a long, long time to get the land and, probably most importantly, £9 million up together to be able to build it, but we're conscious of the fact that Fareham Leisure Centre is very, very busy these days, and that we did need another centre with some swimming space in the west of the borough. So this is a swimming pool, much like Fareham Leisure Centre, so a 25-metre 6-lane pool, learner pool, exercise studios with 100 pieces of equipment, dance studio, etc. So a lot going on there, and that is, you're pleased to hear, on time, on budget. Will be opening in the summer, probably in September. And I think there's about 1,000 applications now from people that want to join and use the facilities there, and that's just everyone active who run our existing leisure centre, just setting up a porta cabin in the car park and seeing what comes, and very, very popular indeed. So I think that's going to be a very successful project for us. Moving on a bit to housing, everything seems to be underlined by housing these days. It's a huge priority for the government is to see new homes built. I probably touched upon one of the reasons earlier, which was talking about the age of our population. If you think about it, think back a bit, normally we would have expected, perhaps 20 years ago, that we'd be housing 2 generations of people, would be owning their own homes, sort of me and my parents, but maybe not the children. And now, of course, it's not uncommon for the children have got a home, their parents have got one, and their grandparents have got one. So if you think, it doesn't take much of a mathematician to work out, well, that's 50% more housing at a stroke that we need, because there are 3 generations of the age that require housing. Of course, sadly, families break apart. When that happens, instead of one home, suddenly you need two. So it's not necessarily anything to do with immigration. It's more just the way people live now and the length of time they do live for. So we work with all of the local authorities in South Hampshire working on housing. The housing figures are generated locally. They're generated from the councils. The partnership, it's called Partnership for Urban South Hampshire, that does not impose housing figures on councils. It's the other way around. The councils assess their housing need, it's called objectively assessed housing need, and then working together, all of the council leaders work on where those figures can best be accommodated within the area, and Push has come up with what's called a spatial position statement, which rolls those housing figures forward to about 2034. And not just housing though, employment space as well, which is something that, of course, councils do need to provide. But what working together does means that every time there's a local inquiry into a local plan, a new local plan allocating a load of extra housing, the first question any inspector asks when they look into those plans is, have you satisfied something called a duty to cooperate, which means that all of the councils cooperate with each other. Inspectors that look at local plans in South Hampshire never need to look far for the answer to that question because they have Push, so that immediately is ticked, which is a step towards that plan being found sound. So we have that duty to update our local plans, and that's what we're working on at the moment with our colleagues. So all of that information which has gone into that new spatial statement will then be consulted upon by each council locally as they roll their local plans forward. You might have read in the press about something called devolution. To many people, they think about Scotland, when the devolved assembly there, they think about Wales and the devolved assembly in Wales. A lot of people over the years, particularly after the Scottish referendum, started saying, well, what about England? Why don't we have England has the most centralised government of, I think it's anywhere in the world except North Korea. It really is, everything is centred on Westminster or Brussels, depending on the point of view, but certainly not around the different areas of England. So the government, after they got the Scottish referendum out of the way, said to local councils, well, we control a lot of powers. You don't actually do a lot, we do a lot, and we're prepared to let local areas take that on, plus the money that goes with it, and a number of powers which they're suggesting could be devolved locally. One is to be able to not just collect business rates, which of course we do, we collect the business rates, and we send all the money up to the Chancellor, and we get what he thinks we should get paid back to us to help run services. So one of the ideas is we will keep all the business rates in South Hampshire. So that's worth about £400 million a year. So there's one advantage there. Another one is the government's offering us as an area over a 30-year period about £1 billion, which we can use towards our infrastructure needs, which, as you will know if you travel around this area, are considerable. And also further education, so adult education, we could control that locally rather than being controlled nationally. So those councils which are shown on that map there, which is basically the South Hampshire councils and the Isle of Wight, have had an offer made by government for taking these devolved powers. And essentially what it means, it's something called a combined authority. And I hasten to add that's not another tier of government again. It is actually much like the grouping that I described earlier that looks at housing and economic development, Push. So it's effectively like Push but with an elected chairman. So the chairman, or call them a mayor if you like. I don't know what we would call this one. It'll be something very choice, but anyway, there'd be effectively a joint committee which those powers which the government is giving to the area, that committee would then dispense them. There would be no new councils, no new buildings, no great retinue of staff, simply the powers that at the moment are controlled by faceless bureaucrats in Whitehall would be given down to local councils to be able to dispense. So that's what devolution is about. What it is not, you may also read in the press about Hampshire County Councils suddenly come up with an idea for a massive unitary council for all of Hampshire and scrap all the other councils in the county. That isn't what this is. This is devolution, where powers come down from government. That, creating a unitary council, is effectively sucking all the powers out of the local area and taking them up to a sort of regional council that would cover all of Hampshire. What else is going on at this moment? Stevenson Court in Palmerston Road. That's a 16-place housing scheme, which we hope to complete this summer, again producing houses towards our affordable housing target. I mentioned Collingwood Court earlier in North Fareham, and there's also a scheme called Sylvan Court on the old Colby's Hospital site, with another few dozen apartments for older residents, which will be coming on stream there around Christmas time this year. So a lot of investment going into housing schemes. What else are we up to? Dog fouling. Dog fouling is a priority for us, something that some of our residents really care about, but sadly some of them really don't care about, and that's why there are some problems with that. So we've been running a campaign, giving bags away to people and trying to help raise awareness and actually stop some of these people that just cannot be bothered, sadly. Or of course you get the idiots who can be bothered and they pick the stuff up and chuck it up a tree in a bag, which is another nuisance. So we do try and work on educating people on that. And the last point on that one, Funtley Governance Review. We had a request last year from some people in Funtley, which is a part of the Fareham North Ward, saying they would like to set up a parish council in Funtley. Well, that's something we're looking at, and we'll be making a decision on that at the end of next month. Wellbourne is another topic which carries on. Still not a house being built there or even started, but 6,000 homes for Wellbourne. That's all agreed, that is in the local plan. But we have a situation where we have two major landowners within that area, one of whom is ready to go, but the other one isn't, and they can't really sort themselves out amongst themselves, because there are three siblings there who, it seems, can't agree, and therefore they haven't been able to get together, all the landowners, and put in a joint planning application for Wellbourne. So of course that's a concern, because what we don't want are odd little applications coming in for bits of Wellbourne, because the most important thing about a community of that size, albeit it's going to take 30 years or whatever to build, but I've always said that we must make sure that we identify and get the funding for the infrastructure which is required before anybody starts building anything. So of course what we can't have is one landowner pressing on, and the particular landowner in question could move forward, but they wouldn't be able to provide the land that's needed for the new Junction 10 or many of the other facilities which are needed in Wellbourne. So of course we can't let that happen. We can't have piecemeal planning applications where we can't get all of that infrastructure together and funded and guaranteed within the same application. So therefore, what we're doing now, and this may change, the developers, the owners may all, there may be an outbreak of love and they all come together and everything moves forward, but being a bit more pessimistic about things, in case that doesn't happen, we are now, as a council, looking for a development partner who will fund the acquisition of the land, all of the land at Wellbourne, through a compulsory purchase order if necessary, so we can give certainty that we will get that development and it will be of the quality and with the infrastructure which we would wish. So that is likely to be proceeding as well now. And then almost at the end, apart from Wellbourne, of course, because we're rolling forward our local plan for the rest of the borough by another 10 years, of course that means there needs to be further housing sites found. But we're trying to look in the main at sites like this town centre, so brownfield sites as they're called, so the town centre area where we are, Porchester district centre being another area that could probably take some significant housing. So we're trying to target the extra housing that we need to roll our plans forward by another 10 years.